All right. So I have another question for you guys, and especially for this crew, right? If there were others on the call, the question might take a different angle, but with the usual suspects that are here, um, I was thinking today, all right, we're going to have another call tonight. There will likely be this group. And why do they keep coming? Was what I was thinking to myself. And I said, self, you should ask them. So, it's a pretty simple question. Why are you on this call, and why do you keep coming to this call? And Julie, you can go first since you're unmuted if you want.
Okay. Hi, Krista. You guys, I mean, I have a very small community here in Phoenix that I can talk to, and I'm so grateful. But like my home church that I go to on Friday nights, and they're all about, Ian Clayton and Kirby Delanroll and all this great stuff. And they're into epigenetics and stuff but this is way beyond. This group is, we go where no man dares to go, whatever that Star Trek phrase is. And I love that. And I love it because I know y'all. I've met you personally, and that means a lot to me because I'm way out here, and there you go.
So not to discount that, but is it for context that's beyond normal and community? Is that what you're saying?
Mm-hmm, both.
Okay. So conversation / teaching / discussion that is beyond normal and community.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm curious, Matt. Why do you turn on your computer on Sunday nights?
Guilt.
Guilt?
No, I genuinely enjoy all the people in the call. So I think community is probably the biggest part of it for me. I enjoy the topics. I'm typically not going to get that kind of information and conversation anywhere else unless I'm scouring with time I don't have. So I like the way things are discussed, the way it's headed up. Yeah, big fan.
Who wants to go next? Christine is just hoping I don't call her. I'm just
I don't care. I mean, the same for us, like community, being in a like-minded community specifically, because you can get just plain old community wherever, I feel like, and that's whatever. But being with like-minded people, the discussion and expanding horizons, I guess, to some extent. And I have to say, we are also for support or whatever, because we've actually missed quite a few things by doing this, because Sunday nights are not the best for us, but we want to be part of it, and I feel like there's value in being on live as opposed to just listening later. I enjoy being able to participate and have the back and forth and stuff. So, do you have anything to add?
No. Well, just to reinforce the whole thing about community, because like she said, you can get normal community anywhere. So it's the like-mindedness that is very attractive.
All right. Who's up next? Is Ron about to unmute? That he's doing? Yeah.
Yep. There it is. Well, because I need to do better and try harder. So no. I've
Sunday. Show up every Sunday.
it was really funny when you said that because I was like, oh, I guess community, and then as everybody else was answering, I was like, yeah, actually, that's not it at all. It's primarily to learn, and then also to kind of ground myself for the week, if that makes sense, to kind of refocus with things that I agree with. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So,
It's insightful.
see.
While you're unmuted, Kaylee, do you want to stab at it? Or you're good?
I mean, I definitely learned some great things. This isn't really. Oh goodness, how do I say this? This type of this type of community, internet community, is not my thing. So it's definitely trying to find the value in the message, and in some ways putting value in it and energy and other things that I have done. So it gives me more value to show up. And part of it too is honoring you, Austin, honoring what you're doing and being a part of it.
Well, thank you. All right, we got what? Krista, Jen, and Luke still to answer. Is Krista still on here?
Yep.
Oh, yes.
I can go next. I come so that I can tell my concerned friends and my mom that I still go to church. No. No. I echo pretty much everyone else's thoughts. It's a place where I can discuss and learn more about topics that are very interesting to me, and I'm always looking for ways to learn more. And then I think you're all pretty cool too. I like being around, as others have said, like-minded people. And then the idea of kind of like a grounding, I think, is true for me as well. Sort of just a grounding, and for the week, it's easy to get caught up in all kinds of other stuff, and it's good to just kind of refocus on other things. So, yeah, that's me.
Q. Jen.
I would have to echo what everyone else is saying, just learning. I think for me, it is a continuation of community, even though this isn't my preferred form of community, it's still the continuation of that. So
The preferred form is with some chips and guacamole. I know.
yeah. Yes. So
That was a good season. So,
it'll come back around.
for sure. Maybe a little more keto friendly version, but you know, it'll
There's a cheat day, right?
I don't know. I haven't researched that at all. I'm gonna have to look at it. But there better be. I'll make one.
Nice.
All right, Luke, you came in a little bit late. The question is very simple. Why do you come? Why are you logged in and on this call tonight? You could be doing 50,000 other things. Why are you here? And why do you regularly come? You're muted. There you go.
I would have to say I come because I don't have anyone else to talk to about this kind of stuff. Anyone else that I do try to talk to about it, it usually doesn't work out very well. They kind of, look at me funny. So it's kind of the only place that I can really call home when it comes to these conversations. It's safe. And I'm getting to know a whole different community of people that I've never met before too. that's important to me to have people around me that I know that believe like me. Otherwise, I kind of feel like I'm on an island, you know, which is what it feels like 95% of the time.
All right.
Even though I don't really get to share very much here, I still get to listen, and I like that.
Well,
Not crazy.
I can't tell. I'm trying to ask more questions on these calls and get more engagement by everyone. So you mentioned the whole, not being able to share as much. Unfortunately, the ability to have side conversation, when you're in a public setting, or a personal setting, right, where we're all in somebody's house or whatever, you can break off to the side and have side conversations while everyone else is eating chips and guacamole. We used to do that all the time. So it does lack some of that flexibility, because obviously there's not a whole lot of open room for 3 people to be talking at once and it to be understood. But that kind of, Luke, your statement and a couple of the statements kind of lead me to my next question is, it's not so much it's a, let me unpack the question a little bit and then we'll go around again. So some of you, let's see, Kaylee and the Rainies, and then Ron by default because of Kaylee. You guys all, and then when Kim's on the call, you guys all got to know me and Joni at church before we shut it down. For those listening to the call who have no clue what I'm talking about, here in Northern Michigan, we had a church called North Point. Kaylee's father was the senior pastor there, and then he stepped down from being the Moses on the mountain and wanted to create a plurality of leadership. So myself and a couple other, you've heard me mention Clint Harriman before on the call. There was 4 of us, and we tried to kind of change the model, and we had all realized that church was broken, and we were just trying to figure out what we could do to fix it. And no matter what we tried, instead of 1 Moses, it was 4 Moseses. And when I say Moses, what I mean is the tendency for people to come to teachers and say, well, tell me what God says for my life, especially in church formats, where they relegate their spirituality to Sunday and Sunday morning most of the time, because football's in the afternoon, and out comes the whatever party and everything like that, and the idea of being spiritual at a football game is suddenly gone. I don't know why, but it doesn't have to be. But I love football. But anyway, so we shut down that church because we realized that we were trying to put lipstick on a pig, where just the idea of Sunday morning meeting, that whole concept, you could have the most amazing message, you could have the most amazing leadership, you could have the most amazing intentions, and your format would always be against you, because it is a trained format for hundreds and hundreds of years, that this is where you go to relegate your spirituality. So it's no different than Jesus himself having to say things over and over and over. So here you have the most amazing teacher, quote unquote, of all time, and even his students didn't get it. So people think, well, if we could just find the right teacher, then we could fix the church, or then we could fix the format. No, not even Jesus was able to. Like, that's literally, it is the format that is the problem, right? It is not the teaching, it's not the intention, it's not the pastors, it's the format. It's all of it And so this is an attempt to, I guess, once again, tackle this whole, like, how do we do community? How do we do church? And part of it, as a luminary myself, or visionary, some would say, is I'm very curious as to people's why. So I just ask, why do you come? And I would ask anybody listening to the recording, why do you listen to these recordings? You could be listening to music. You could be watching a movie. I think the answers are pretty common across the board. There was some variance. I do like the addition of, I think Ron started it, and a couple of, Krista mentioned, like, that whole grounding, like it's something to set yourself for the week. That's an interesting take, which is cool. But for the most part, everyone had the same two answers, which was community and learning crazy stuff. So my next question is, with that and with all that background, some of you this community has become, very, very big part of your life. And I think over time, because this stuff is what it is, anybody who stays around long eventually gets highly involved, right? I'm curious as to your guys' thoughts on that and how it relates to the real question I have, and I want there to be there's no zero judgment or condemnation in the question, right? But it is a genuine question, because I feel like the world needs what we have, and not sure how to do it. And that is why, what is it standing between you now and, quote unquote, inviting all your friends, right? And I don't want to, I have some ideas, but I don't want to, like, throw out prerequisites. I'm just curious. If you love the context, if you love the conversation, and you love the community, what is between that and then inviting other people into it?
That's really easy for me. I don't feel grounded enough in some of the things that are discussed and stuff that, even beliefs potentially, to want to get into any sort of defensive conversations or explanations about things, just to invite anybody. And there are a couple more people that I'm considering inviting, but I just, I want to feel a little bit more grounded myself in stuff before I have to start trying to explain or defend certain things.
To not jump away from that, what don't you feel grounded in? Are you able, do you have specifics, or can you unpack that a little bit?
I mean, yeah, there's a lot of the stuff, honestly, that I don't know that I'm settled on yet. Stuff that is sort of taken for granted at this point. Some of the things that I'm not sure. I haven't connected all the dots for myself yet on some of it. So, like, even the origin of stuff, I'm not totally sure about, like the tree stuff and the way Jesus is laid out, and that can, all those kinds of things, honestly, I'm not 100% on. I'm 100% on the heart behind everything in this community, and the fact that we aren't afraid to ask questions, and that we aren't afraid of going in different directions. And I'm also, to some extent, feeling out some people because there are friends that I have that I think might be more okay with stuff than I necessarily might think, like that would be fine with asking questions and going in directions, and it wouldn't be an issue necessarily. I'm just not sure. It's one of those things that's easy to and on at the same time, there's so much of the stuff that we talk about that I'm like, is it really that different? Is it really that odd? I don't know. I've been used to it for so long that I'm not sure anymore if it's really that strange.
That's why
but
I'm asking. I'm like, what's weird? I forget.
I know, right? Like, yeah. So
The thing is also with this kind of stuff, once Humpty Dumpty falls off the wall, you can't put him back together.
Yeah, red
know?
pill.
So like, you're like, hey, come check this out. And you're like, now what?
yeah, then what do you do? Like for me, it honestly would be easier to have conversations with people or invite people when I'm not living around them to be like, I don't know. I feel like some of those conversations would be easier over like written or something. I don't know. But as well, our church is also, there's lots of ways that they continue to be taking forward steps. And so in that context, I feel like a lot of them might be a lot closer to some of this stuff. But I'm just not sure yet. I'm just kind of still waiting, I guess, to some extent to feel, I don't know. I keep studying myself or doing my own studying as much as I don't have a lot of time, but, and yeah, continuing to have question and answer times is helpful to me and that kind of stuff. So.
Right. So if I may summarize part of what you said, definitely not all of it. The culture you're absolutely on board with. It's some of the conclusions that you're still weighing.
Probably, and some of the concreteness of some of the conclusions potentially.
Sure. Okay. Anyone else?
I'll go next.
Okay, go ahead.
Part of it is I don't know all the details to everything that we believe, because I'm very like, that sounds right. I feels right in my spirit. I believe it. And I know there's other people that like, I need a chapter and verse and a timestamp and 3 other cited resources, and I just don't have importance on that. So I don't have that. So I'm like, well, it just is. Like, just learn it. So there's that piece. And then the other piece is just, it is kind of like once you open this door, it's a Pandora box, and your life can spiral if, left to not having any support. And I just don't have any I don't have the capacity to support someone through that kind of journey at the moment. So that's why I don't engage with other people. I do kind of, but not to the full extent of come to this Bible study on Sunday nights. So that's it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I guess for me, I haven't met anyone who wants it yet.
Say that again.
I haven't met anyone who wants it yet. Too many people right now that I know are just happy to be struggling with the life that they have instead of pushing for more.
For myself, I have actually invited a few people, but they just don't have the same importance that I think we put it on. And I am selective in who I share it with because just my personality, I try to, not that it needs it, but protect the group. I don't want somebody to come on here and be destructive to what we've built.
This is good stuff. least I'm appreciative and enjoying it.
Well, I'm of the obviously older generation, and I'm always very concerned about being a stumbling block. I take it very literally about you don't feed meat to babies, because if you did, they'd choke. And Jesus said, if you offend or make one of my little ones stumble, it's better that you have a millstone put around your neck and thrown in the bottom of the sea. So it's like, I'm very careful with that. But the thing what I am learning, and just recently I shared with a woman that I met in Costco, and all of a sudden she goes, "Are you a Christian?" And I said, "Yeah." And so we put up this, and I said, "Do you go to church?" She goes, "No, I'm not finding any church I want to be a part of." I'm going, "Oh, well." So I said a few things, and I gave her a few websites. And she gets back with me on a text saying, "You're in a new age church and it's dangerous. You're being taken down the wrong path," and yada, yada. And I said, "Thank you for your concern, but I'll tell you what, where God has led me, I am loving him more than ever in my entire life. And I'm 63, and I just keep loving him more and more because he's more and more amazing. And like Jen said, it's so funny, cite the references and, timestamp and all that. I actually do that. Almost, pretty much. Austin knows. You don't just tell me something and I just go, "Oh, okay." No, I research it. But the thing is, there's maturity with this. You have to know in whom you believe and are persuaded that he is faithful to keep that which is committed. And I know that's a little bit out of context right there, but I know whom I have come to know him so intimately, and I know the word, that I know truth from error. Not that I can't be deceived somewhere. And I have to say, I'm not all in with the going to a psychic, and the tarot cards still kind of freak me out and everything. But at the same time, I understand that it is what I make of it, because am I going to come from a point of fear? Or I'm going to come from a point of overcoming that I'm a son of God and I'm above everything. I'm above all this stuff. So, no, I won't come at anything with fear anymore because I know who I am. But there is the stumbling block issue. I have learned, Austin, you told me years ago that you just might say a little blurb and you can tell immediately if someone's opening to hear what you have to say, or just zip it. I'm very sensitive to that. And and then like Kaylee said, there's just not a lot of people you can tell because they're not ready for it. And I think when we learn all this really obscure stuff, like you said, Ian Clayton is not afraid to broach any subject. I'm not either, because I know my God. But until you know your God and you know who you are, these are deep waters. There.
Well, to the stumbling block issue, it's interesting that Paul says that not being under the law was a stumbling block to the Jews, right? He had no problem handing that out, right? So it's interesting that I believe the context of the stumbling block is actually interesting concept that is about giving somebody law so that they can stumble, right? As opposed to handing them freedom. But that's another subject for another day. I'm hearing a common theme, but I'm curious, anybody else, what, not everyone has to answer, but, Krista, Matt, Luke, I think of the other ones who haven't, what, if you had anything to add as far as what keeps you from, because everyone's, I enjoy the community, I enjoy the subjects, but it's difficult, a lot of people have expressed it's difficult to invite people. So is there any insights you could share to that?
Well, for me personally, I'm fairly isolated nowadays. I meet people at the kids' sports practices, but that's about it. And so my pool of new people is very limited. But as far as older people, like I've invited people, I think, I don't know if it's just, since I can't just give them a link and they can be here like that, like to this. I don't know if that's too much of a barrier to entry. Like, well, hey, check out the site. If you're interested, then we can get you set up on a membership, whatever you want to call it. I don't know. Some people, maybe it's just not that high up their interest ladder, and I've misjudged. I don't know, but I have invited a few people.
Okay.
Yeah, I would definitely say I also try to kind of see if people would be interested in it. And at this point, like, I can't really think of anyone who I know off the top of my head who is interested enough in something like this and at a place where they not struggle with a lot of it. But I think another factor for me is the format. I think even just to the first question, a lot of people were saying like community and stuff. And I like to be present, and I'm sort of a like out of sight, out of mind. And so for me, coming here isn't so much about community as it is for some people, just because this format of like meeting through a screen isn't really my thing. So I feel like that partially has something to do with it. Like, especially if someone's like on the edge of understanding certain things, like I would want to be there with them in person more, or have spaces where there's like a group meeting in person that I could involve them in before I'm like, oh, in this, it's just not really me. And so I think the format of how we meet and discuss things has a little bit of weight in it for me. So yeah.
Right. I would say to that note that the long-term vision is absolutely to have the local fellowship, which is, when founding the thing, I was like, well, how do we do this without it always being virtual? And that's why it's the whole invitation only. The assumption being that if you got invited, there's at least a 70% chance that you live in the same town as the person who invited you. In cases like Julie, she's invited a few people who live in Texas, but at least there's a relationship outside of this, because that is a challenge. And I agree. This isn't my cup of tea either, but we're all over the place. I think it's, I think a lot of people would agree it's better than nothing. So how do you create a virtual church and keep it relational? Well, unless there's another one, the best solution I could think of was an invitation only thing, where we don't have this random crop of people showing up on the call every night going, oh, let's start from the beginning, and so it's like tomato and some of that. But that was the motivation behind invitation only, not to keep it private, not to keep it, hard to find or barrier to entry, or it was to keep a community of relationship that in some way, shape, or form try to guarantee that somebody like Krista is not just stuck in Timbuktu by herself with nobody to go have coffee with and talk about this stuff. And that is part of why I'm asking, what is the difficulty in bringing more people? I definitely am not asking about bringing more people to this call. I'm more a general question about to the stuff we believe, to the community. It's taken on an identity known as New Age Christianity. I don't want, there's a short list of things I don't want this to be. One, I don't want this to be Austin's private ministry that is just everyone come listen to me talk. Right now, that's a lot of the meetings are that because I know I am the primary teacher. But the goal would be to have a more and more decentralized group, like any denomination, where if you go to any major denomination and they've got thousands of people who communicate what they believe, right? You have thousands of Baptist pastors and Pentecostal pastors and all this stuff. And so the set of beliefs is well understood well enough that multiple people are sharing it and sharing insights and growing. So I don't want it to stick with just me and then, a few chosen people who earn the right to share some stuff as well. I mean, that could easily go down that route, and that's not what I want. Secondly, I don't want it to be just virtual. Like, I want it to have a physical component. I want it to have a personal component. But to do that, we have to get over this hump of how many of you are stuck and it's just you and maybe one other person in your area. Like, heck, Traverse City, there are 3 families here, the Hales, the Teasdales, and the Fletchers. And then you could add Kim Vandertorn, who, by the way, hasn't been on the call in a while lately. Anyway, oh, that's right, she's in Alaska. So you got Kim, and there's some peripheral people relationally, but even up here, there's not a whole lot of people to hang out with on this level. So I even get that. So I am 100% open to ideas on how to overcome that hurdle. How do you get a group of people that Julie can meet with, or that the Rainies can meet with, or that Tiquintina can meet with, or oh, I also have Luke here. I feel like such a douche right now. He's probably texting me, "Hey, what about Luke?" Anyway, that's hilarious. Hi, Luke. So you've got the smaller groups of people. The whole point is, how do we get over that hurdle? The invitation aspect was absolutely a component there. And the other thing I don't want it to be is just churchy, right? Just spiritual, just set aside my spiritual time and then move on with my job and my career and my hobbies and my everything else on the side. Because I believe that is absolutely one of the major problems that stems out of the old model, is the setting aside of my spirituality from everything else. So those are the 3 major things I don't want this to be. And the reason I'm asking these questions is because anytime I feel like it's sliding into that rut, I want to get a gauge of where everyone is at and see what we can do to not go there. So one of the major things, sorry, my internet's getting weak. I'm going to turn off my Wi-Fi. One of the major things that Luke mentioned, 95% of the time he's on an island. I think that's the phrase he used. That he can't share this stuff with other people. Is he still here? He's not on my screen. Oh, there he is. Sorry. Is this stuff really that difficult to share? And if so, or is it really that crazy? Is it really that scary? And if so, what can I do / we do to help lower that barrier to entry or that weirdness factor? I can see some people's wheels turning.
I I wouldn't say it's that difficult to understand. I think it's a progression, so you need to start off with the base of some stuff. Some knowledges would definitely be an advantage to have before getting into this. A lot of it is, the more and more I'm finding, at least with my generation and the people I spend a lot of time with at work mainly, is just not any desire to learn more. I mean, I know there's times that like we have conversations, and there's most times people just go, like, "Wow, you really thought about that deeply," and it's like they almost mean it as an insult. But then to that point you go, okay, I'm not going to try to share something with you that I know you won't have value for. It's just going to waste most of our times. So right now, honestly, more than anything, there needs to be a hunger, and I'm not finding that yet. I'm sensing it broken. A lot of people are angry at the church, so they don't want to hear anything with that. But there's not quite that like innate hunger that want for more. So if anything, we're going to have to awaken that there is more and that it is better, and it does work.
Bingo, I think you hit it. Hunger. Go ahead, Krista.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, when I say that I don't, it's not necessarily that I'm saying people aren't like, oh, they're not ready for it. It's like they don't want it. Like, they have communities where they're comfortable, where they're getting, fellowship or whatever. And so presenting this type of material would mean that they break out of those communities and that sort of support base. And so it's just not even something they're interested in. It's not like they'd be resistant to it or like they're not ready for it. It's just they don't want it. So like, yeah, I think that's more of the issue that I find as well.
Yeah, I find a lack of desire. There's not a lot of people who want to think very deeply these days. They want thinking done for them. So there has to be a hunger from the Holy Spirit. We are forerunners in this. Also, I think it's huge. People don't know, like the sons of Issachar in Scripture, they were praised because they know the times and the seasons. Most of believers don't know that we are in the new age because they're waiting to be beamed up. And so you got to counter that, first of all, and then they think you're in a cult and that you're completely blasphemous. And then, so they have to be educated. Seriously, we have to be educated to come to where we are, all of us. But the general populace of believers don't have ears to hear. They don't care. And I think that's why, and I think, Kaylee, you said, you kind of brought up the, like, don't cast pearls before swine. I mean, Jesus said that. He also spoke in parables. Because if you don't have ears to hear, you're not going to hear. You're casting truth before people who couldn't care less are going to trample it. And then they trample you. I don't know. We're forerunners. I think that is the uncomfortableness of what we're dealing with in the overall spectrum of things.
I find, at least in our church, that there are a lot of people who are aware that there's more and that are searching for more. But then there's also, they just don't have any clue of what some of these things that we talk about are even like a thing, like preterism or, ages or whatever. So like if I know that there are people that, definitely just don't care. And I've definitely encountered plenty of those people, but then I definitely have people in our lives that I know would care, that need like a sort of like that gateway to break in, to realize, wait, maybe there are answers to some of these things. And and then that would expand, I believe, their ability to seek it out and to sort of, and like a gateway drug. Like I feel like the ages and preterism stuff and the like I always harp on the patterns, the typology and that kind of stuff. To me, I feel like that's very much the beginning steps to being able to, and the covenants, you know, the concept of how that all is played out. I feel like that's definitely the beginning steps to being able to expand vision and understanding. And having all of that stuff laid out in a really concise way that they can just grasp that quickly. And if it's biblically sound in a way that they can answer those are the initial questions that people have, that like oh, I don't know, is this okay? Like, can I really go down this path? Is this really safe or whatever? And being able to answer that biblically without having to go through a whole bunch of back and forth and figuring a bunch of stuff out. If that's already laid out for them, I feel like it would totally rock a lot of people's worlds that I know, at least. That's one thing.
I feel like there seems to be like a quote unquote type of a gatekeeper to people's minds in this sense, and it's something akin to legalism, tradition, what comfort maybe, I don't know, and getting past the gatekeeper is the important part, in a sense, to where you can deliver the message and it will take root. It's too easy to say something and then have people's hackles completely rise because it's something that is completely different, opposite, strange than what they've heard their whole lives. And on top of that, it seems like, especially with the church, people have been conditioned to say, "Oh no, that's demonic," or "That's, you know, you're not a Christian. You're denying Jesus." You know, especially with the end time stuff. You don't believe that Jesus is coming back? You know, what's wrong with you? Can't you read the Bible? You know, and yeah, once you get past that stuff, that's why I feel like it's important to know your stuff before you try to bring something up to somebody in regards to this kind of these kind of conversations, I guess, or whatever you want to call them. It's because you need to be able to get past the gatekeeper of tradition and of legalism, because it's so ingrained in people, and it's almost like an immediate reaction that once you bring something up, and once you bring something up that is contrary to their basic tenets, then they immediately shut you down, and whatever you're going to say after that is basically worthless. You know.
At the same time, the people that are really hungry, when you get to the point when you're so hungry that you're more hungry, it's more scary to say the same than it is to change, or something like that. Is that saying? It's more uncomfortable to say the same. There's a point where you'll start venturing out, even though it is scary or it is uncomfortable or whatever. But and that hunger, for sure, I don't feel like it's our job to give people hunger. I feel like that's the Holy Spirit's job. I don't know, but to get people to the place where they're ready for something. But the stuff that we were talking about, I feel like definitely can take down walls that are automatically there initially for a lot of people.
I'm really curious to hear Luke. Kaylee raised her hand. She put her hand down.
No, that was me. Sorry.
Sorry.
So it's funny because I'm hearing people talk, and when we first started this group, there was talk initially of doing stuff outside of spiritual stuff as well.
Yep.
And for this past age that we know so much about, and this tradition that we keep talking about, how the church is set up, we really still are set up a lot like a church. And we're heading in with all the spiritual stuff, and a lot of people's intentions and where they put their importance isn't on the church anymore, because it failed to solve a lot of people's problems. So they're not looking in that area. They're looking towards, business, success, self-help, all these different areas. And in my mind, I think we would almost have better success the more well-rounded we are, and really develop and define kind of a new direction other than just, hey, this is our Sunday group where we only talk about the spiritual stuff. I mean, we can tell how it correlates, but I think some of the topics should go away from the spirituality in depth, and it would pique more people's curiosity, and we would become more well-rounded. Just as a thought.
No, that's where I do have a question on that. Is do you? Because that's a intention and a passion of mine. Is that that would come out of this would be stuff that would actually change people's lives, right?
Right.
So if we had goals, let's say we all lived in one place, and we were going to build a brick and mortar building, right?
Yep.
That's what these groups would focus on, because with the groups of believers, groups of fellowship, groups of commonality, at some point, if the only reason you're gathering is to talk and eat, then you do lose some of the forward momentum, right? What you end up having is you end up with a small group of people who just enjoy talking and eating. There's really no reason to go beyond. I mean, so this group we did the Spirit and Truth conference, right? And then that turned into Epic, and Epic is still doing its thing. It's morphed a bit and everything like that. One of the intentions that I would love to see come out of this group is, as was actually something I was thinking about as I was thinking about kind of where this conversation would go, is what could we do with ourselves, right? A project, a conference, a missions trip, a business, whatever, because it does need to be beyond just church, or else, and that is, for better or worse, we're all so well trained in church that it's old hat. That's one of the reasons I was curious what Luke was going to say as far as some of the challenge of talking to people, because I'd venture to say a lot of his friends and stuff aren't church people, right? So David and Christina's answers and my mom's answers are very much around, we need the biblical tools so that people can understand what it is that we teach, and there could be some lower hanging fruit and some gateways into that. Absolutely agree. Totally agree. But then there's the other side of the coin, which is people who could give a crap about the Bible, right? I'd venture to say, knowing Luke, some of those conversations he's had have been around that. And so, Luke, if you're still there, your camera's off, by the way. I'm curious what your experience has been, and when you say you're on an island 95% of the time, what is the challenge you run into of speaking to people? You're unmuted.
So, when it comes to speaking to people,
You might be, I think you're covering your microphone or something.
can you hear me now?
There we go.
So, when it comes to speaking to people about stuff like this, it's few and far between, but you know, at least I do anyway, on a spiritual level, when someone is ready to have a conversation like this. And a lot of times it's not in large doses. A lot of it is like, you know, just a little bit of the truth sometimes, and it helps. But you know, a lot of people don't want to go all the way. A lot of them get scared. A lot of them are kind of stuck in a certain way of thinking, and like with what, you know, these guys said earlier. But some of them, they limit themselves because, you know, I'm so young, and I apparently that makes what I have to say, you know, I mean, we had that conversation about one of my old old people I used to know, and let's just put it at that, because this is all recorded. So now he won't talk to me anymore. They won't talk to me anymore because I had that conversation with them. Like,
Right.
eventually, you know, you get good at it and good enough to start poking holes in other people's beliefs, and when you get there, you know, you have to be careful. It's not fun bringing down someone's world, like, right in front of them. It's not fun to do that. You don't want to do that. You want them to bring down their world for their benefit, you know. So it takes a certain person in a certain place in a certain time, and a lot of the church world, you know, they trained us to pray on the week. It's not like that. You can have deep, meaningful, in-depth discussion with someone that has a big brain, that is not insecure about who they are, and still come out on top, you know. But and a lot of it is like, in the beginning, I was kind of afraid to talk about it. You know, I kind of thought about it like the way that you explained it. The lion is kept in the cage, not to protect the lion, but to protect the people. However, you know, on the other side of that, there's some people along the way that want to be like you are in your life, because that's what it's about. A lifestyle, you know.
Yeah.
A lot of people are like, you know, not to just, I'm not sitting here like patting myself on the back the whole time, but a lot of people are like, Luke, you're so happy, you know, you seem to have some things together, you know, when there's a lot of shit going on, you seem to be able to hold it together. And I'm like, yeah, there's a reason why. Do you want to know why? Yeah, I'd love to know why. Here's why. And if they're not ready for why, then whatever.
Yeah, at that point, it just doesn't make sense to them because they're not there.
This sounds like old school lifestyle evangelism.
right?
Just live your life and see if people ask questions and kind of feel them out, say little things here and there and see if they act interested. And it sounds like missionary type stuff, you know? It's kind of the same old problem that we had back in the church where we're supposed to go and get people out, you know?
I
Go ahead.
I definitely approach it from a very spiritual perspective. Like, you know, there's an energy that people give off when they want something, and I attract those people. I have conversations almost every day that go deep. Hi, what's up? Sorry, what is that?
Pork. Smoked pork.
Smoked pork. All right,
Like on the campfire, smoked.
I'm on the phone. No, this is really good.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. Yeah, it's really fun now. Like, there's a handful of people at work that you know, they're going through a lot, and then they talk to me about it, or they've been through a lot and they talk to me about it, and I'm like, for me, when someone shares their pain with me, when someone does that, they're not only opening themselves up to your perspective, because a lot of them don't know how to deal with their pain or whatever it is. A lot of times I can share a lot of spiritual perspectives on a lot of issues like that. So that's the kind of angle I've always come at things. Got some smoked pork. It's really good.
Well, so I mean, it seems to me like one of the comments. I was curious if what Luke's answer would be any different as far as the people who aren't churchy and stuff like that. But it still sounds like the real big thing is at least a perceived reality that this stuff doesn't go so well in partial doses, and a lot of people aren't in a place where they want the full dose of what this is. And I guess then to there, and I would ask, like, I'm assuming that you all would rather have more people to fellowship with, right? Like you'd like to have like more than just people across the country on a Skype or on a Zoom call. And yeah, as Christina said, the old-fashioned lifestyle evangelism, right? Just live your life and see what happens. I'm curious, Christina, there's, Kimberly's not on here, but both Krista and Kimberly are direct results of your intentionality to share this stuff. What was it that, and I'm going to ask Julie as well, because there's some people who listen to the recordings. It's also been on her list. What was it that you saw in Krista or Kimberly, or what was it that kind of opened that door in those relationships that other relationships are just not getting?
I don't know. I honestly don't remember exactly with Krista. I think I just felt like she was on the same wavelength, or like had similar ideas about life and doing life and stuff that she wanted to do with her life. And I honestly, I don't remember, but I just knew she was one of the first people I thought of when we were talking about epic stuff. Or no, actually just about like the universe and all that stuff too. So partially in the creative aspect, but also, yeah, I don't know. I just knew. And then with Kimberly, she was at a point where I could tell that she was looking for something and she needed encouragement. And there was a thing coming up that it was the Psyche thing, and I felt like it was a modality that she would connect with. And so I mentioned it because I knew the type of person that she was. If it was something that should move forward, she would move it forward herself, and I wouldn't have to push it. I didn't even ask her to go. I just knew that she would if she was supposed to. So it was basically just life stuff.
Right. So really, for both of those, it was almost a. I remember with Krista, you were like, who we should get involved. It was Krista, and it was kind of an epic gateway into. And I remember immediately asking, "Do you think she thinks we're, is she going to think we're crazy?" And you said, "No, I think she might actually be interested." And then she came up here and got 2 days of red pill, and we warned her, and then she texted back like a week later, "You're absolutely right. I can't go back to normal. Thanks a lot." And then with Kimberly, it was Psyche. So, but both of them, it was almost like a reason to get involved. And then once they saw what was here, they decided to stay.
But I definitely wouldn't have said anything to them, knowing the background of everything, if I didn't feel like they were in the right place also to be able to handle it or whatever. So
Right.
It was a combination, I guess, really.
Man, it's hard for me to do these discussions. Like, I need the option to see like all the people and still record the main screen. Anyways.
I just think one more thing is that the other person that has been on my mind to invite for a while, no other reason than that I think that they would be interested and intrigued by furthering beliefs, and I just keep forgetting to say something, or I think about it at the wrong time, or I don't know. So that person would not need any other, I don't feel like would need any other in or whatever. I would just say something to them.
Right. Julie, aka Mother. Your peeps who listen to the recordings and stuff like that. We all, Doris, Mike, Kim. They have all been on at different times.
Michelle.
Oh, that's right, Michelle.
Yeah.
So, what is it in those relationships versus others?
I was thinking about that. I think my number one draw to be able to talk to some people is the trust factor. They trust me, and I have such exuberance. I just can't hide it. When I get so excited about the truths that we're learning, I get so excited and they trust me, and then they listen. And so for me, I think it's relational first, and they already know me, and then they see how much it is everything in my life, and so they know it's genuine. It's really cool to see Mike is a new believer, and he just jumped on board immediately. Like, he knows enough about scripture to know that we aren't feeding him a bad pill. And it's cool because in real estate community, that's where he and I met. In real estate, he's still very involved in the real estate community. He's been mentioning things to people, and they're trusting him for who he is and his exuberance. And then he's bringing them to me. But anyway, I think it's, first of all, a trust factor. They're watching our lives. they have to have ears to hear. That's just primary. And that is the Holy Spirit. I mean, I'm very blessed because I'm very spoiled, actually, because I was in a group like this in Oregon. So I've got lots of friends stemming from that, though I can't talk like this to everybody because they're still in a little bit of more of a box. They're in a great big box, but it's not as big as ours. And then I'm on three other Zoom communities during the week. And they all stem from this. They stem from my own, from Oregon. It's just, you know, I think because Austin, you started on me years ago. I just gone full out and I haven't stopped. And so I really feel like I've got a growing community, but it's based on relationship and excitement and exuberance and trust.
Right. That's what I think the common theme is. And it's not a surprise. It's not like, oh, this is an amazingly deep revelation. You should write it down. No, it's the same thing Jesus did, right? I mean, it's in his final prayer in the upper room. He says, you know, to the Father, to those whom you have given, of those whom you have given to me, I've lost none, save the son of perdition. But it's that idea of like, who has he given you? Who has the Spirit given to you as a charge of sorts? And that leads me to my next question. Do you feel like that question applies to you in the sense of, do you feel like that there are people on this earth whom the Father has given to you? This kind of goes in with last week's question, you know, is there a purpose? Is there every church ever in existence has wanted to increase their influence, some for the sake of money, others for the sake of significance, and others for some other reason that probably still flows back in some way to money and significance. Because in the end, that's a huge driver for everybody. And so the question of how do we get more people? Each one bring one, you know, and exponential growth and lifestyle evangelism, whatever Christina called it. I'm sure Matt has had more training on that stuff than as a church planner.
The number of books I've given away on this topic.
Have you, please, Matt, enlighten us. Is there any golden formulas you have sorted through, or any insights that you have found to be so incredibly off base for who and what we are?
I think really maybe defining the front door and making sure that the front door is well known to the people here. And then, yeah, so that it can make its way out to people who might want to find that front door and go through it.
Right. That's the thing. And so that's why I figured what I'm struggling with, and it's not a struggle in the sense of a negative, it's what I'm wrestling with, what I am debating, what I want to get from this community. I come for community. I come to have some amazing conversations about stuff that is not easy to talk about with other people, but it's rocking my world and I love it and everything like that. Awesome. I don't think we're trying to build the next Willow Creek, right? We're not trying to become something massive. We're not trying to market. We're not trying to do that. But we do want to gain influence in people's lives. We want to affect people's lives. And to Matt's point, defining the front door. Right behind that, my question is defining the why of having a front door. Because we could say this is a closed group, right? We could say, before you invite anybody, you have to get permission. We could say whatever we wanted, right? This is a secret society, and you have to go through blah, 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 blah to even, we're not saying that. As a matter of fact, we're saying, no, it'd be great to have more and more people, yet the front door to be defined, I'm not sure I'm in a place where I want it to be. I definitely want a front door, but do I want it the size of Texas? Like, does it need to be this massive, over here sign with fingers pointing at it and, open, flashing, all that stuff? I don't think so. Does it need to be a hidden door that's behind the bush and everything? Probably not that difficult either. But nondescript, and, if you didn't know what it was, the occasional passerby would go, I wonder what's over here. Yeah, it's probably what I'm thinking. But as the community, what are you guys wanting? Are you guys wanting, so it was really the second half of this question that I was asking myself today while I was working on the siding of the house was, okay, why did they come? And then what do they want? Right? Are you getting what you want? In some ways, you're getting some of what you want, which is why you come. But what's missing? What is it that could be added to this? And this is a really good place to, I'll start jotting down good ideas if they're. But what do you want out of NAC? Not just this evening, not just Sunday nights. What do you want of this community and this concept? Go.
Micaiah wants something. I definitely want results, and I want to be grounded and able. I want to know that I know certain things in a way that in a way that I'm able to share with other people. But at the same time, something that I was reminded of when you were talking was that the initial learning a bunch of this stuff that we talk about, honestly, well, it took away the guilt of feeling like I had to be saving everybody. And in the same context, it took away the urgency or the, almost to some extent, the feeling of necessity of needing to save people, even though clearly people want, largely, I think, want a better life, or want, there's plenty of hurting people that need help, obviously. But there's an aspect to some of this stuff that we talk about that kind of takes away some of the, honestly, I've struggled to some extent with feeling like it takes away some of the compassion or the drive, potentially. It's something that I've struggled with like, your life is a perfect reflection of your beliefs. If that's the case, it's very easy to go the direction of, well, I guess that's what you believe. I'm sorry, like it. I feel like there's some of the things that are potentially a negative result, unless they are have some sort of a good context, or like obviously the Holy Spirit working it in your heart in a good way. So to me, there has been that aspect where it takes away, because there's not the guilt of you have to save people. There's also less oomph to do it. And so if I'm not having a lot of regular interactions with people that make it more of a gateway to share things, I'm not necessarily going to, I mean, I would share with more people if I was regularly meeting with more people, but at this stage in life, I'm not as much. So that's one aspect. But yeah, I just wanted to, that while you were talking, I remembered that aspect of things, that it takes away some of the urgency of sharing. And honestly, my first initial reaction is, do I really want a bunch more people on this call? I don't know. Selfishly, until I feel more solidified in some of what I understand and believe, and until maybe even potentially until I'm operating in more concrete fruit in some of the things. Do I want more people diluting that? I don't know if that would potentially get diluted. At the same time, I think going over fundamentals again can also be useful, because you learn more each time you go over things. So I'm not sure.
Right. Before we go on to the next person, on a side note, if it helps, you can have the motivation of actually saving people from hell of their own creating.
Very true. And yeah, that has been my motivation since, like I talked about last week, the whole truth sets you free concept. And that's why, again, that goes back to why I've felt also somewhat hesitant on some of the things, because I'm not totally solid on the truth aspect of things. And so I want it for sure to set people free and not just expand their horizons, but then make them also somewhat confused or whatever, right. Potentially. I don't know. Yeah. Because yeah, it messes things up. It has the potential to mess things up in an unproductive way if there are not good resolutions, or if you're not, like we talked about, in the right place. It can just almost depress you if you're going, I don't know. Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing. Who else would like to share what it is? What do you want out of NAC, out of a spiritual community?
What was the question?
What do you want out of a spiritual community? I.e., what do you want out of NAC, New Age Christianity?
More community, closer community, you know? Like, I get to see Ron and Kaylee sometimes, and you, but it's about the only people in my life that I get to see, you know? So I have talked with other people about this group, and unfortunately there hasn't been much success yet, but we'll see about that.
Right.
We can invite anybody to our NAC group on Facebook, right?
The group,
part of me is like wondering what we're allowed to do.
The group on Facebook is intended to be, for the same reason, it's invitation only. And if you do invite somebody, you can invite anybody. But the idea was you're inviting them to community of which you're still their connection. In other words, you can't invite them and then dump them on me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So yeah, invite anybody you want. That's the thing. And literally, invite anybody you want. Just know that when you do, you're their connection. So if you're inviting them to community, you're inviting them to something that an expectation would be that you would be someone who would stay in their life. You know, the personal connection that Krista was talking about. You know, hopefully she gets a decent amount of opportunity to see David and Christina. You know, if she didn't or whatever, she's moved or whatever. But it just sucks when you're on an island, and I get it. So if you invite friends to any of it, the only request is that you stay there and you stay engaged in their part of it. And I said in the beginning, you're quote unquote responsible for them, and in many ways that is true. Trying to create more materials so that you don't have to teach them, right? But they're still gonna come and go, well, what about this? And at least you can then point them to the right piece of material. I don't expect everyone to be a teacher, but yes, you can invite anybody you want. With the one caveat is you just can't dump them here and leave. You stay engaged with them until they find their own feet. Krista has found her own feet in this group. So I'm not expecting David and Christina to be, her chaperone. But in the beginning, it's like, I don't know these people. Well, I know you, so you're safe.
Right.
So yeah, invite anybody you want, with that one caveat. And if someone gets on the call and they're totally disruptive, both Ron and Kaylee and Julie have seen how I handle that type of scenario in public. And I feel
That was the day the cult started.
it was the day the cult started, officially. And I was teaching Doctrines of Demons. That one's a regular.
You're also the Antichrist.
Yes, that's right. That was the first time I was ever called the Antichrist.
Oh, I've been called that before.
Yeah. Who else has been called the Antichrist? Okay.
Oh.
Well, if you haven't raised your hand, then you're not officially a member.
Or we're more tactful in how we talk.
Nope, you're still in probation. At some point, you need to be called an Antichrist to fit in. No, I'm kidding.
So, can I answer your original question
Please.
about what I want out of this group? For me, is I'm hoping and doing my best not to put expectations on the group yet, having a community that wants to grow. And all different areas have all different speakers, and it be a place where somebody like me or somebody, my husband, or other people, and there's people in this call that I have amazing giftings and amazing knowledge that I really want you guys to share. So please do. But where we can share these things in our heart, instead of having, if you try to go share to a church, they're going to vet you and tell you what not to say, and it's just all these parameters. And then they're going to make sure, that they do their offering first before they would even think about blessing you. It's just the whole intentionality is very person-like, I guess. So for me, I'm hoping for a group of people that want more and are willing to share what more they have found. And I feel like if we start doing that, we're going to attract those people. We're not going to have to look for them. They'll find us.
Yeah. Yeah. Who else? What do you want from a spiritual community such as this?
I think one of the things I've always enjoyed about church in general was the idea that we're going through it together, but that our lives are intertangled outside of church. And so the idea of like grilling and chilling, obviously in an online community, that's a bit more difficult, but that's like when I think back to traditional formats, like that's what I always enjoyed. At North Point, for example, after all the chit chat, we would have a meal together and continue chit chat on everything else. So I don't know how you work that in this, but that's some of the things that I really enjoyed.
What I enjoy too, and I get it from my other groups too, is we start out, does anybody have any like weekly testimonies of experiences that they actually had in the spirit, and or just whatever testimony, and that is pretty cool. It's very encouraging. It stimulating. It can stimulate your own growth. Like, wow, I want to do that. I want to see that. I want to try that. And that, I know I've shared some of my kind of bizarre stories with you guys, and Austin's shared some bizarre stories, but I haven't heard too many others. And what I want to see is growth and experience, because that's fruit. And I know we're all having it, because we wouldn't be at this level, I presume. But I get really excited to hear people's fruit, hear people's experiences, growth, what they experience, what aha moments that are like, like I've got a plethora of aha moments that have just come to me in the last couple of weeks. It's like, and I haven't put them in a platform of sharing them yet, but I have to. But I'm not ready yet. And it's all built on, Austin, about where you've taught us to this level. Like, for what I've got, the aha is all about, the temple imagery and the names of God, or how he revealed himself through his names in progression. And it's just like something came to me, because I have this passion to make all this new thought of Dr. Dispenza, and quantum physics and epigenetics and all this stuff, and law of attraction and everything. And they're so close. It is so God, but do they know him? And there's a stuck point, and I found it. I can't change it because I'm not the Holy Spirit, but I found it. I found it in the temple imagery levels. I found it in the names of God levels. And it's like, so this is just running through my head, something fierce, and I can't wait to get it. So I know we all have stuff to share, and that would be exciting to me.
Do you want to share next week?
No, I'll be out of town. I'm in an intensive all week as part of my growth.
What about the week after that?
Well, then I'm in Oregon with great grandma and grandpa.
What about the week after that?
Well, then it's Kirby Delanerol. I'm kind of out of pocket for 3 weeks until, I know, excuses. I'm seriously out of pocket for 3 weeks. A pretty intensive 3 weeks until September 10th. So, I don't know, after September 10th?
So the 16th?
Sure. Okay. I did have to open my mouth, didn't I?
So, on the 16th, you're going to share with us where the stuck point is.
Okay.
In the temple / names of God and all of that. Are you good with that? I mean, you don't have to.
Sure. Not that I'm not sure by then I'll have the whole, my thesis all in line. But, I mean, okay, I'll try.
That's all right. David will tell you where you're wrong. That's fine.
Good. I can use whatever comes. I am very teachable.
And then Luke will tell you where you're right, because ninth guy. But by default, it's kind of telling you where you were wrong, because anything where he says you were right, the rest is wrong.
Ah.
Luke's kind of a passive aggressive like that.
Well, I'm teachable.
So you want more testimony. You know what? I'm reminded of Kimberly at the beginning when I told her I was going to start NAC. She was like, "Are we going to have testimony time?" I said, "Yeah, I want to make that part of the website too. If you've got them, please record them. Use Facebook, FaceTime, and just throw them on the group. I would love to have. I think there's been a few people that I know Kaylee came on one time, an experience she had at Starbucks with somebody. I can't remember the context, but I do remember she just said, "Hey, I want to share this with everybody." But that's what you're talking about, is kind of sharing, here's where I've come, here's where I'm. Well, there's one thing that does beyond just, oh, how cool, is it actually gives opportunity for other people to catch a moment to go, I was there 6 months ago. I actually could help them go to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so it pinpoints when we don't know where people are at, you're kind of stuck with, well, I'll just talk about something else I haven't talked about, which is one of the reasons I'm like, okay, most of this crew has heard so much of what I have to say. Like, do we just start back over because there's people watching the recordings who haven't heard it? Or you can find out where somebody's at and pinpoint them on the roadmap. And then now you have a moment to say, oh, I know where you're at, and I know what's coming next. And then you can actually, and then anybody can actually chime in.
Mm-hmm.
So I would love to hear more,
Mm-hmm.
hear more of where people are at, what they're experiencing. In some ways, last week and this week are me. I'm doing some market research, if you will, on you guys and on what's where we could take this whole thing. Does anybody else have like what it is? What do you want out of a spiritual community? What do you want out of this community? I know for my part, and like not everyone has to answer. I know for my part, one of the things I want is I want action.
Yeah, me too.
I want this community to do crap.
Mm-hmm. I want to start walking through walls and walking on water and everything.
I mean, like world, not personal action's great. I'm talking about action in the world.
Yeah.
I'm talking about whether it's missions trips, conferences, building businesses, running for political office. I don't care what it is. When I say I want us to do crap, I don't mean I don't want us to do crap. I mean, I want us to do crap. It's all about where you put the emphasis. But I want action. That is one thing I think absolutely was an earmark of the religious system we came out of, was a lack of action. Right? So many churches, their action was, well, we need to pay for our building. Right? And then often you'd get a youth pastor that pops in who's got some passion, and the board shuts him down because of, we can't afford $5,000 for a missions trip. We need to pay for the building. Or we need a new sound system, or the carpet looks disgusting, or whatever. And then in the churches that were about action, there was so many strings attached, right? And it was still get them in the building, pay for the building, increase our fame, increase our fortune. And I think one of the primary sources of action that I'm hoping for, that I'm wanting out of this, is actually not missions trips and projects like that. I want profitable, world-changing businesses to come out of this community. That I find it when I look at things like Facebook and Google and I look at whether it's car manufacturers or home builders or new technologies or something, I look at all this stuff and I go, why is that not a group of people who have a very high level, passionate vision for why they're doing it, right? Why is it relegated primarily to, well, I'm starting a business because I'm an entrepreneur and I need to make a living somehow. Like, so that's my big want out of this group is action. I know it has to come from a strong foundational why. Why in quotes. It has to come from a strong why, and the why is, I believe, all the stuff we teach. It's the ages. It's the the I amness. It is we are here to be the body of God. I mean, that's a big freaking why, and it's very strong. But out of that, what are we going to do? Well, we meet every Sunday night. Well, congratulations. Way to not actually live the stuff you're learning. You know, you're the body of God. You're here to change the world. You're here. What are you doing with that? Well, we meet on Sunday night. Okay, then. So that is, Epic is a part of that, and this is something I've been feeling. I mean, you're talking. I'm someone who tried to reform churchianity for 15 years from the inside, and not that I quote unquote gave up. I just realized out of time and experience that the system was broken, and if I took one lesson away from it, okay, what would I do differently if I ever do it again? Is I'd take all the time and effort that we take into building our attendance and building our building, and I would put 90% of it into building projects that change the world, building projects that change people's lives, building projects that change people's income, building projects that change people's trajectory. Now, to do that, you need people. So you can't take 100% of your attendance-driven efforts and just ignore it. That's why this call. Well, why aren't we? What do we need to do to share it, make it more approachable? But in the end, when we have 10,000 people meeting on Sunday nights, and we turn around and go, well, what are you guys doing with that? Well, we meet on Sunday nights. I mean, I sure hope that's not the only answer. I hope it's, well, we've started these 20 companies all over the world exist because of this organization, because of this community. These missions projects, these conferences, these books have been written. Whatever it is, my hope for this community is that action results. And if you're listening to this recording and you've got an idea and you've been sitting on that idea because you've not known who to do it with, clearly this is a group of people that have gathered around some pretty intense beliefs and some pretty refined vision or purpose. And so I don't know of a better group to try to, if you've got a project, whether it be for profit or nonprofit, bring it. There's actually, I don't know, I haven't really shared it much because we're just not there. But the website actually has an entire feature to it. I went with a particular service for the donations because one of the features of it is people can create projects like GoFundMe, right? Where if you had a project, you could actually log in, submit your project, your images, and a description of the project, how much it was going to cost, what you needed to raise it by. You could actually submit this whole thing, and the community could fund your project under the tax umbrella of the 501c3. So that little project I have about getting the learning modules and the app, that whole feature, I used that whole fundraising platform. And that is absolutely a major passion that I have for this community, is to facilitate action that the Father has placed in each one of you. I have a firm belief that while there is synergy between all of us, I have a firm belief that He has placed a certain measure of assignment. It's a different language than purpose and all that stuff we were talking about last week. You may not know your life's purpose, but you can certainly be given assignment for a season. Right, a passion that rises up and says, I don't know if I'm supposed to be a missionary my whole life, but I do know I'm supposed to lead a team of people to Guatemala. This was Bobby Selkirk. Led a team of people to Guatemala. He's only done it once. He went down there once and felt like he was supposed to go back, and it was an amazing trip. So that may be it, but we want to be able to fund that stuff. I would love to have a large enough community where we could fund startups. literally have an investment side of it and have people present investment opportunities and say, hey, I've got an idea. This is how much I need. I mean, what better place to get it than a like-minded community? And use the brains and the experience of the people in the community to help you perform better. So, sorry, I'm getting a bit big. I do that sometimes as far as getting visionary. That's a ways down the road, I know, but that is absolutely one of the things I hope for out of this community. You know, personal fruit, absolutely. More community, absolutely. Influence in the world, absolutely. But projects and action is if we're not going to take our money to build buildings and pay tons and tons of salaries, what are we going to do? You know, and if you're not giving here, where are you giving? Because that's where a lot of your reciprocity is going. And if you're not giving, then that's a whole other discussion. But I digress. Anybody else? Does that trigger anybody's thoughts as far as what you're wanting out of a community?
I was gonna say that also. Right after I got done talking the last time, I was like, "Oh crap! I forgot that part." He doesn't stop talking. I definitely want to do all that stuff as well, like build stuff with people. That was one of the big things that David and I were praying for a long time, was people to build things with, because we have tons of ideas of things to build. And I don't know, no one else was jumping on to say anything, so I don't know if someone else is going to say something or not, but something that I was thinking about while you were talking also earlier that I just wanted to ask the question. In the last age, when the age was ending or whatever, people knew, or they had something that people wanted in the aspect of like healing and different kinds of things like that. Do you think that there is, and that was drawing people a lot, do you think there is any difference in this age as far as people being drawn, or do you think it's the same kind of thing? Or I don't know, do you have any thoughts on that, if you want to talk about that at all, if no one else is saying anything else?
I do very much have thoughts on that. That's one of the it kind of goes to the thing Ron brought up about we really are just still a church. Let's be honest. Like, mostly what we're doing is churchy. And that's not what the next age is looking for. The next age is looking for, to be honest, action, but they're looking for information that will actually change their lives. So back in the day, when you didn't have doctors and you didn't have hospitals, going to community that could heal you was absolutely amazing. 2,000 years later, most healing has found its way into the creative process of the individual through science and through medicine, right? And if there's a clip that I have, I'm considering turning it into a little bit of a kind of a short snippet, but there's 3 different ways to bring physical or spiritual realities into the physical. And back in the past age, with the apostles and stuff, healing was brought in through miracles. Well, now that's one of the ways it can happen. The other one is through natural health, right? So I eat the right foods, I change my diet, everything like that. I can heal that way. So there's miracles, there's healings, and then there's medicine, and that's outside intervention. And so much of what the church was able to provide to the world back then is now, well, you just go down to the CVS. Is that a problem? I don't think so. But you know what the world can't provide right now for people is a sense of clarity of vision, a sense of clarity of purpose. And I would come all the way down to say that on the natural level, there is a reason that life coaches and there's a reason that people like Tony Robbins, a personal development teachers and stuff like that, their popularity is starting to skyrocket because by the millions, people are leaving the church and finding, oh my gosh, I'm getting from Tony Robbins what I need. And what I thought the church, and maybe not even consciously, what I subconsciously hoped I would get from the church, I'm getting vision, getting clarity, giving wisdom on how to run my business and how to run my family and how to run my health. That's the thing that I believe is why the next age, so this is my very long answer to say, instead of miracles and healing, it's identity and wisdom on how to be divine. That is what I believe the coming age is looking for, and it's looking for that in manifested sons. If you want to be equivalent to Paul or Peter, was it Peter's shadow? He's healing people as he walks by. You want the equivalent, the modern day equivalent of that? Be someone who owns 20 businesses, has an amazing marriage, is completely above reproach, and loves the Father, and walks in the position of a David or Joseph or Abraham, Isaac and Jacob, the influence, the wealth, the success, and the integrity and everything to go with it. You want to be able to have the same kind of influence that Peter had back in that age. I believe in this age it is who is walking in their divine I amness, because those are the ones who will attract that requirement, because this is the final age of walking into humanity's purpose. And so it only stands to reason that it's a group of people who have actually done it in spirit, soul, and body. Right? All three realms are. This is what this next age is about. Ergo, that's what the sons of this age are going to look like. So I don't know. I'm pretty quote unquote stuck on that answer in the sense of it makes so much sense to me in understanding spirit, soul, body, and everything that has happened. Moses stood out in the 2 ages ago because he had forgiveness for the spirit, right? The apostles stood out last age because they had redemption for the soul, and we would stand out in this age because we have manifestation of the sons of God, because that's what the earth is groaning for, and I believe that's what's coming. So if you were curious as to why I'm so focused on action and why I am doing everything I'm doing as far as starting businesses and studying guys like Tony Robbins or Bob Proctor, guys that I would consider to be above reproach as far as I know, high integrity, financially secure, yet also be able to and love and care on the individual. Like right now, Tony Robbins has my attention as like, I want to be that, because to me, that's what Joseph looked like. And I think the kingdom should have loads and loads and loads of those people. Preach it.
Well, I am focused on not only Tony Robinson and Bob Proctor and everything, but I'm focused on Mary Morrissey. She's the female equivalent of all that. And this next week is an intensive with her. And I will be in a small group, and she will lead it. And I feel very privileged. And I'm going to California for a whole week, but every single day, I guess the encouragement I have to say is we were created for a purpose and assignment. What is that? And I think, I'm beyond the child, raising years. However, I have my grandkids a lot. But you guys have those of you with children, you have your hands full. I'm not even married, so I don't have that distraction. But I haven't even found I'm just now waking up because I don't intend to die. I have no covenant with death or sickness or disease or illness or anything. And so it's like, oh my goodness, I might as well think like I'm 21 years old. Seriously. I mean, really, like, why not? And so my life is on a whole different plateau. No children, no husband. No. It's like, whoa, I'm basically 21 again. What am I going to do? And it's just finally all coming together. And I have so much in my head, and I'm so excited. And I can't wait to share with you, Austin. But we are in a new age that we have to know. I think we need to pursue with diligence why we're here. Because, I mean, all of us on this call, we're very unique, or we would not be on this call. So there is a huge reason. And yes, Austin, mine also entails humongous business. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but God does. It's in my heart. And so, but I would just encourage everybody, yeah, there is a reason we are here today at this time, this hour. And I would encourage everybody to pursue that diligently. And it's kind of painful sometimes. I mean, very painful with a lot of mistakes, but.
Well, by default, you pretty much have to throw out the definition of normal.
Yeah.
Kaylee, I see your raised hand.
This was going off of what you were saying earlier. When you said like being business focused, and you're kind of saying why. Actually, we go back to what you were saying about body, mind, and spirit. If you notice, Old Testament was very mind. It was law. It was learning in a head knowledge. Jesus came and brought us spirit. Now we, in this age, need to bring it into reality. So what are we doing? We're bringing heaven to earth.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so much of it, the spiritual side is great, but if we can't bring reality to earth, then we're not living in our age.
Yeah.
So that's why you're focused on it, is you're focusing on the timing of where you're at and what this age is about. That's all I had to say.
Oh, show. And that's the thing. I mean, and I think the reason the church is dying is actually the church, not the church is dying, that the churchianity is dying, is because of the lack of vision for the future, i.e. the end times, right? And so when you take that away, the church has no reason to keep going, has no reason to keep doing. To be completely honest, when the church really lost its place in its direction, I would say, obviously you guys all know about Rome, when Rome made it the official religion. Under Constantine, that had a huge part of it. Suddenly, the next day, unless you wanted to die, you had to be a Christian. So now you have millions of Christians who have no clue what it even means. So that obviously dilutes the power of it. It dilutes the meaning of it. But then you have, different reformations, and you have different moments and different seasons throughout the history of the church where things get revived. But somewhere in there, they lost vision for the universe, and it was all about bringing earth to heaven, as opposed to bringing heaven to earth. And so I think it's no wonder that when people look for vision and passion, they find it in people like Tony Robbins. They find it in people like Tim Ferriss, or wherever it is that they're at. Some of them may be in business, some of them may be in health, some of them may be in science and technology. Those who are passionate about changing the world financially, Bitcoin and blockchain and all that stuff, and you get all the breakthroughs in science and health and diet and everything like that. I mean, there's a reason that this and the internet is here to help it as well. You know, before the internet, you had to kind of either read a book or hear about it on the radio, maybe watch a TV commercial, but now you can readily get this stuff available. And the church is just it doesn't have a vision to match that, right? And so that is the homework assignment for this community. How do we take what the world has now, what the world is looking for, and bring heaven to earth? How do we actually manifest the kingdom that we know exists, that we have the capacity to do? And the best answer I have come up with is start businesses, start projects, do crap. Because that's what actually changes the world. That's what actually inspires people to change their own life, and then they go change the world. And whether or not it's all got the same umbrella name, you know, New Age Christianity or whatever, is obviously not the point. The point is that the inspiration at the core of a community is, what can we do? And so maybe it's a decent place to, not that we have to end, but ask anybody listening to the recording and asking everyone on the call, pay attention to what the ideas that the Spirit brings you. And above all else, believe that you actually have something you could do. If the life you live is satisfactory to you, then congratulations. Awesome, well done. You know, pray for the rest of us to get there. But if there is still more, if there's some drive of some missing pieces, consider that somewhere in there, it's not about the money or about time, but it's about action, and it's about fulfillment. It's my favorite quote from Tony Robbins, although he's got a lot. Success without fulfillment is still failure. And if this thing ended up being 10,000 people and all we were doing was meeting on Sunday nights, in my mind, it would still be failure. Because it's not about fulfilling the heart cry that we all have to be meaningful in this world and to actually have purpose, at least on a seasonal level, at least.